Hi and welcome to this video in which I would answer one of the questions that repeated in previous engineering management exam. The question asks about the different schools of management thought. And to answer this question, we need to break down the management schools of thought into three. The first one is a management process school, then the behavioral school, and then the mathematical school. Starting with the management process school. This is the traditional management school, also known as a functional school. It argues that management is not an innate talent, but it is a skill that can be taught through systematical application. It breaks down the manager's job into the core functions, and that's the root for its name, functional school. It focuses on the functions of project manager or manager generally. Planning, organizing, staffing, leading, communicating, and controlling. The key characteristics are the chain of command, unity of command. So basically the communication goes in one direction from the top to the bottom. Division of labor, span of control. And as you see, the manager is the center here. So it is manager-centric process. And then the second management school, and this is going to be the focus of our video today. It's the behavioral management school. It shifts the focus from the structure and the functions of management to the human element within the organization. So it can be broken down into main two sub-schools. The first one is the social systems school. The second one is human behavioral school. And under each one of them, there are different theories that we will discuss briefly in this video. Let's start with the first sub-school, the social systems school. It focuses on the group or the team. And here there are three main theories. Hawthorne experiments, Likert, Black, and Mouton. Hawthorne experiment was done in the 1920s, just after the World War I ended. It was performed in a factory in Chicago. It was called Western Electric's Hawthorne Works. The main focus of that experiment was to identify the factors that affect the productivity of workers. So here the focus started shifting from focusing on the processes into focusing on what motivates people and how to get them to achieve better productivity. The experiment included different settings. One of them was the effect of lighting in the workplace on the productivity. The second one was the effect of the number of breaks and the frequency of breaks, and so on. And it took several years and several experiments were performed. One of them, and that was very fascinating, was the lighting experiment, in which the lighting initially was increased in the workplace, and the productivity was measured, and as thought, it increased when this happened. But then to confirm the findings and confirm that higher lighting is better, the experiment was repeated but with dimmed lighting. And surprisingly, the productivity of the workers that were observed did not increase, did not reduce. And instead, it actually increased again. And that was surprising. And then in the third time, the third iteration of the experiment, it was reset to the initial setting. The lighting was reset. However, again, the productivity did not go back to the initial point. So what happened is that different analysis happened on the conclusion, and the main outcome was that the effect of supervision, the feeling of the workers that are measured and their productivity is measured, increased instantly their productivity. But the second thing was that they started feeling appreciated. They started feeling that the management is looking into what makes them convenient. And once they got that feeling, their productivity increased. And that was the catalyst for all the behavioral theories that rise after that. Second theory was the Black and Mouton's managerial grid. What happened here is that there was a comparison between two things, the concern for production and the concern for people. So the management, some management were focused on the production and some of them were focused more on the people. And so as I mentioned, some managers were more invested into the production and improving it, and some were focused more on the people and how they feel. And here in this grid, what happened is that Black and Moutons created different categories of the managerial approaches that different managers have. The people who have less interest in production and less interest in people, these are basically the managers that just hide behind policies to not make decisions and not drive accountability. But the interesting points are here. Managers who focus more on people than production, they believe that we take care of people and the job will be done. This is good, but not the best approach. They call it the country club management style. It doesn't actually drive accountability into the organization. And here, on the opposite, managers that focus on the production and don't care much about the people, these are the autocratic management style, and that's that burns and reduce the morale of the team, and eventually it will result in turnouts and reduction eventually even in the production. And the best approach is to focus on both sides. Focus on the people and also focus on the production. And this is the team manager position that we strive to achieve. Next, we are still in the behavioral management school, especially talking about the social school, which focus on the team. Likert's management concept. So Rensis Likert developed his theories by studying different organizations, high-producing organizations and low-producing organizations. And then he divided them into different categories based on the management style. The first, and he called them the 4 systems. System 1, exploitive authoritative. It's in which managers lead using fear, threats, and centralized decision-making. So usually the communication is poor and downward, and there is little trust and teamwork. System 2, benevolent authoritative. Management is controlling, but instead of fear, they are using rewards, which is good, but still the decisions are made only in the higher levels. The policy is set at the top level, so the people don't get invested in it. The teamwork, the people on the front line don't get engaged. System 3, consultative democratic. Management seeks consultative input from the subordinates, but the final decisions are only made in the top levels. And then the best approach, as per Likert, is the participative democratic. This is the ideal system. It is characterized by complete confidence and trust between superiors and subordinates. Next, human behavioral school. Here the focus shifted from the teams into the individuals and how to motivate each one of them and get the best out of them. So there are main theories here. We'll take them one by one. The Herzberg's Motivator-Hygiene theory. Herzberg's theory divided the motivating factors into 2 categories, the motivators and the hygiene factors. Motivators are things like responsibility, recognition, personal growth. These are factors that affect and increase the productivity of the workers. On the other side, there are factors that are required, like salary, work conditions, safe work conditions, right? These are, he called them the hygiene factors. They must be there for the worker to not be dissatisfied, but they don't necessarily motivate the workers. So that was actually an interesting point of view. And then Maslow's hierarchy of needs divided it into even further levels. So Maslow, what he did is that he created this kind of pyramid for the needs. And the bottom, the physiological needs: food, water, warmth. Next, safety needs: security, safety. So even in the workplace, job security comes here. After satisfying the lower levels, then the individuals will be seeking satisfaction in the next levels. Next one is the social needs: teamwork, feeling of belonging into the team. After satisfying this, then comes the esteem needs: prestige and feeling of accomplishment. Once the individual reaches this level, then they will reach this one eventually, which is the self-actualization, in which they start giving back and even taking more ownership into the success of the organization. Next theory is the theory of X and theory Y for McGregor. McGregor looked into how the managers have internal assumptions toward the workers and how this reflects on how the workers behave. He mentioned that some managers always assume the worst from the people. They assume that the people are lazy and dislike work and will not work until they are closely supervised. Surprisingly, this will reflect on how the workers react. They will not take the ownership, and they will not lead the success. On the other side, theory Y, in which managers assume the best of people. They assume that people come to work to do the work and they are self-motivated and enjoy work. Surprisingly, this reflects on how the workers take the ownership and actually drive results. Next, McClelland need to achieve. So McClelland studied workers involved in a plant shutdown, and he observed two distinct behavioral patterns. There was a group of people that actually succeeded in getting another job shortly after the layoff. And after analyzing their behaviors, he found that they have what's called need to achieve internal need. They always seek getting things done. On the other side, the other group took more than 6 months to find another job. And after realizing what the behaviors that they have, he found that they have what's called need to affiliate. They basically depend on others to help them and to set goals for them. So because of this internal need, then the results that they got in their life completely differed. Skinner's operant conditioning theory. So the theory is based on 3 core principles. Behavior that is rewarded tends to be repeated. Behavior that is ignored tends to be extinguished. Behavior that is punished generates a negative, fragmented response. So basically this applies on how you treat your children, but also on how you work with your subordinates. When you see a behavior that is good, recognize it and make it public so people start even following it more and repeating it more. And try to not use the punishment unless you have to. Next, we will talk briefly about the mathematical school, which is the 3rd school of management thought. It also has different theories and sub-schools underneath it. The first one is the management science, or the quantitative school. It models the processes to achieve optimization. So using mathematical models, we can calculate the lead time, and we can improve the processes by identifying the bottleneck. Next mathematical school is the decision theory school. It identifies a situation and its range of possible outcomes, and using probability and taking it into consideration and the impact of each outcome, then a decision can be can be made taking all these potential outcomes into consideration. And that's where something like the decision tree comes. Next is the scientific management, which was developed by Taylor in 1911. He developed 4 management principles that led to these production improvements. Develop a large collection of knowledge about the process under study. Then scientifically select workers who are most able to perform the work. Then train the workers to do the work using the one best way. Then let management and workers collaborate on decisions so that unique knowledge each has can be used when solving problems. But the limitations of the management of the mathematical school is that not all managerial problems can be easily quantified. For example, employee morale, corporate culture. These things affect heavily the outcome. So mathematical school is important in making decision, but it can't solely be used. It has to be used taking the other schools of management into consideration. And in conclusion, an effective engineering manager understands these schools and use each one of them in the best scenario. And that concludes our video today. Thanks for watching.